Hello guys, this is your friend and we are back with a new fanfic. Which is what if neglected Naruto and becomes the King of West Part 1. And if you enjoy this fanfic then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this. And now let's start the fanfic. Konoha. Night of the Kyuubi attack. The night started off like any other for the people of this village. The people going about their business, shops closing and the nightlife of Konoha coming out of its slumber from the day. That was until a deafening roar was heard throughout the town. The people of said town all stopped what they were doing to gaze at the huge amount of smoke that was covering up a portion of the village. For most didn't know what caused it, but the ninja of said village did and were both scared and curious as to what could cause such a large amount of smoke. Suddenly a large hand that was covered in orange fur came crashing down on multiple houses and building. It was that got all of the people and ninja out of their shock and for chaos happen across the village. Cave on outskirts of village. What have you done? Yelled out Minato Namikaze, leader of said village that was being attacked. What needs to be done and there's nothing that you can do Minato to stop it, said a man with a spiral-like mask as he charged Minito. Minato threw one of his famous triprong kunai and the masked man, aiming it purposely just above the man's head so he would think that the blade would miss him, but was enough to make him still duck on reflex. As the masked man ducked his head slightly for the kunai to pass over him, he smiled. Obito Uchiha was going to kill his sensei and destroy this accursed village. He was going to have revenge for his precious Rin, thought the now named masked man. That is until he felt the hand go through his back and out his stomach. He was then forced and smashed into the ground by Minato using his two most famous jutsus, Hiraishin no Jutsu and the Rasengan. Minato then got up and was about to leave, worried about the Kyuubi and thinking of ways to seal it. That is until he heard the masked man laugh. This stopped Minato as he strangely remembered the laugh. He looked back and was in shock at what he saw. There on his back was his dead student, Obito Uchiha. After a few more seconds of laughter he puked up a large amount of blood to his side. He then spoke in a tone that was filled with the tiredness of an old man on his deathbed. After all the planning and waiting I'm defeated not even 5 minutes into our fight. By a technique that you're famous for and one that I planned against. He paused to take a breath and continued. You won't be able to defeat the Kyuubi. No one can. Well, that's alive that is. The last person was Madara and I burned his body myself after he died. Minato was confused by what he said but stored that information for later. No matter how much he wanted to question his old student, he needed to get the Kyuubi sealed into a new container, which he realized would have to be one of his children that were born tonight. He knew that his wife Kushina was not strong enough to hold the beast because of the labor she had just endured, which caused her to become too weak and unable to contain such a beast. With his mind made up he teleported to the Kyuubi, leaving a dying Obito behind. As Obito laid there dying he looked up to the sky and was amazed at the beauty of the sky. Maybe it was the fact that he knew that he was dying that he thought these new strange thoughts. For he never looked at the sky. For he was always busy planning and training to kill his former sensei and destroy this DANM village. As he was taking his last breath he muttered one last thing to the cruel world, Rin, I'm finally going to see you again. And with that Obito left the world of the living. Pasture outside of Konoha. Just before sealing. In a pasture outside of Konoha was large fox with 9 tails and orange fur, that was as tall as a mountain. This was the Kyuubi no Yuko, one of 9-tailed beasts that once roamed the land of the elemental nations. Currently the Kyuubi was in chains that were coming from a young woman that was barely clinging to consciousness. She had long flowing red hair and fair skin and a figure that any woman would kill for. This was the Hokage's wife Kushina Uzumaki Namikaze, but at the moment she was sickly pale and hair a mess as she tried and was slowly failing to control the fox so that her husband could seal it. When he first told her that he was going to seal it into one of her children she was almost hysterical. For she knew what it was like to carry such a burden and could say that she didn't want anyone to take that burden, let alone one of her own children. After a lot of convincing and an angry fox later, she finally agreed to it because she at least knew that whichever one they chose would still be loved and cared for as a normal child with a family. She looked at her husband that was finishing the last hand seals for the sealing jutsu that was for both their children, as one would take the chakra and the other the soul. Of course she knew the risk that came with it. Like how if Mito wasn't careful with the hand seals, the seal would be put up but it would be weak and would take the soul of the caster. This would also allow the Kyuubi to fight for dominance of the body since the seal would be weak. Now if that were to happen and the Kyuubi win, well, let's just say that their child would be no more and the Kyuubi would have a new body. With one final hand seal, the Hokage shouted, "Fuinjutsu, Shiki Fujin." A ominous feeling came over the pasture that is a huge amount of ki, and I'm calling it ki, not killing intent, its way easier, came from the huge figure that could only be the Shinigami himself. He appeared as a man that had very light purple skin and long white shaggy hair with two small red horns that came out from his head, and lastly he was sporting a white kimono. As he appeared he spoke in a deep tone. "So it seems that you measly humans have found a way around me consuming your souls with your jutsus and whatnot." He took a breath and muttered something about missing the taste of a human souls before speaking again. "Speak. You are wearying my patience, human." Minato looked at the death god and with a firm tone he said, "I ask you to seal the chakra of this tailed beast into the girl and the soul of the beast into the boy." It was quiet for a minute, as the death god looked first at Minato, turned his head to look at the Kyuubi, then looked to the woman that was holding the Kyuubi. He then turned to the two babies that were there on a ritual stone. He then said in an ominous tone, "Fine, it will be done." The death god then drifted towards the beast and stretched out his hand. What happened next shocked both parents. There is the hand of the Shinigami went into the beast and came out holding a ball of orangish red chakra. Then put the other hand into the beast and pulled out a white ball of energy and drifted over to the two children. When he reached the two children he looked down and saw a boy and girl. The girl had red hair and fair skin with blue eyes. The boy had blonde hair and purple eyes with pale skin. He then pushed the orange orb into the girl. As he pulled his hand back and seal appeared. It's the same one from the anime, I'm not going to describe it. Just look up 8 trigram seal on the stomach of the girl. Next he put his hand on the boy and pushed the white orb into the boy. As he did this he felt something from within the boy. Something old, something ancient that did not belong to this world. He pulled his hand back and the same seal appeared over the boy's stomach. He then turned to a relieved Minato and a Kushina who was finally relaxing due to not having to hold a struggling beast. "I have done what you asked, so release the jutsu so that I may return to my realm," he said. Minato bowed and was about to release the jutsu but stopped. "Before I release it, may I ask a question if it isn't too much to ask?" It was silent for a moment. So quiet in fact that a pin could be dropped and mistaken for an explosion. Kushina just started at her husband in shock and only prayed that the Shinigami would not do anything. She then looked at the death god and waited. The Shinigami looked at Minato and was tempted to just outright eat his soul for questioning him and not letting him return to his realm, but he knew if he did, then his sister Kami would bother him about rules, so he begrudgingly answered, "Fine. What do you want?" Minato knew that he was walking on thin ice, so he spoke quickly. "What seal did you use and will it hold?" The Shinigami looked back at him and was about to answer but decided to have some fun. This mortal, he doesn't come very often to this realm and he needed to release some stress and anger. So what better way than to mess with a human? "I used the 8 trigrams sealing seal. It is a strong seal that is used normally for large amounts of chakra but still should be watched closely, since it's a tailed beast's chakra. Now I use the same seal for the soul. For there is no real seal that could trap the soul of a tailed beast since it is technically a mass of chakra given form. So I have no idea how the seal will hold." "That is a complete lie, heh heh heh. As he finished, Minito and Kushina were a little startled to think that their son might not be their son but instead the Kyuubi reincarnate. Now will that be all? He asked, getting both parents out of their shocked states. Yes, I will now release you from this and thank you. Both parents then bowed as he descended into the ground. Kushina was the first to get up and started to run towards the two children with Minito following. Mindscape. As both parents walked towards the children, the Kyuubi was banging against the cage inside the boy's mind, yelling and screaming to be released. As it was doing this, it realized that the child that it was trapped in was inside with it. On the other side of the cage doors, albeit but there nonetheless. It realized that just maybe, if it could skewer it right now with its large claws, it'd be free. As it tried to skewer the child, it did not notice the figure that was in the shadows behind the child. The figure watched in amusement as the beast tried to free itself by killing his descendant, waiting to see if the beast would notice him. As the beast continued to try and kill the child and continued to ignore him, he was finally fed up and sent one of his many treasures at the beast to get its attention. He succeeds because just as the beast thought it was going to finally reach the child, a sword made out of pure gold nailed its finger to the bottom of the floor. The beast howled in pain, for it was not used to normal human weapons piercing its hide, but as it looked at the sword, it realized that that wasn't a normal human weapon. It radiated power. A power that once roamed this world. The power of said weapon felt like him. That man that was able to beat the strongest beast into submission so long ago. So with hesitation it looked up, and fear and shock ran through it as it saw him. Gilgamesh. Gilgamesh was a very handsome man that stood at a height of 6.1. He had golden hair that looked to be naturally spiked up. He wore no shirt so the beast could see his body. What it saw brought back bad memories of their last fight where he nearly killed it. His body had red lines that ran from his lower pecs to his shoulders but then spit into different directions. One going along both arms and the other over his shoulder and down his back. Gilgamesh just looked at the tailed beast with a smile. Long time no see, Kurumi. What are you doing in that form? It is a disgusting form in my opinion. No, I prefer you more human form. Now change before I waste another one of my treasure on you. As he finished speaking, the now named Kyuubi begrudgingly changed into the lowly human form that she possessed. As she shrank and formed into something more human looking, she walked towards the cage doors and out of the shadows. What stepped out could be nothing short of a goddess. He would know because once upon a time he was married to a goddess. An. She had silky reddish-orange hair with an hourglass figure. Cop-sized and that was round and firm looking. She had 9 orange tails coming from just above her butt and a pair of fox ears coming from her head. Her red eyes glowed with power as she stared at the man before her. What do you want? She asked angrily. He stared at her uncaringly, and for a few seconds, she thought that he would say nothing. Until he finally spoke. This place is filthy. I believe that it needs a cleaning and a change of scenery. And with the snap of his fingers, the depressing mindscape that was once a sewer changed to that of an ancient palace of some sort. They seemed to have appeared in a medium-sized room that was fit for only royalty. The floor was made of stone and colored a medium beige. There weren't many walls, only the walls that separated this room from the next, with an open doorway that led to said next room. The side of the rooms let you oversee the jungle-like terrain, which suggested that they were not on ground level and possibly on a second or third level judging from the height. The night sky was clear without a single cloud that could block the beautiful stars in the night sky. The only thing separating the outside from the inside were the round cylinder-like pillars every so often to support the ceiling of room. The room itself was huge and had lots of wild flowers of all sorts and color that were baskets that hung off of bars that were connected to the pillars supporting the ceiling. In the middle of the room was a bed, the red covers, multiple pillows and large enough to fit 4 grown people. Kurumi could only stare in shocked amazement at the sight of such a beautiful place. Even if she knew it wasn't real and only a projection of the mind. He then brought her out of her shocked state by speaking. Listen, beast, and listen well. This boy that you tried to kill, now pointing at the sleeping child on the bed, is my descendant and chosen successor. He will succeed me in this world, and the only way to do so is by conquering everything and everyone. But to do so he will need help. Even I know that he cannot do it alone for the simple reason that he is not me. For there will never be anyone like me, and for this reason I will present him with 2 gifts. He stopped to take a breath and looked around for a second. He snapped his fingers and a golden-like throne appeared. He then walked to it, sat on it, and continued his speech. 1 gift I will give him will be you, he stated almost mockingly. Kurumi looked at him with a face that only had one emotion on it, rage. She was a tailed beast, it, the strongest one too. She wasn't going to allow herself to be some child's pet for the amusement of some dead man. Even if he beat her in a fight the last time they met. Now why would I do that? I would rather die than be a pet to some child. Let alone a human child. She spat out. That is where you are wrong, beast. He is not some measly human child. He is a child with godly ancestors. Therefore making him more than any measly human child. For I would not choose some random child to be successor. Either way I sense that he will bring great change to this backwater planet you call your home. Whether it be good or bad I do not care. All I care is that he succeeds me by making everything his in this world. Again, why would I do such a thing, she said. Every word filled with a rage that would send any man running for the hills. Well, that's simple. I would kill you, beast, for not listening to your betters. This conversation alone is a testament to my patience, but trust me, it waning extremely fast. So will you obey, or do I have to kill you? He stated in a tone that left her feeling nervous. For she knew that if he truly wanted to kill her, he could. She also knew for a fact that he is the only person that could really kill a tailed beast. Knowing that she really didn't really have a choice, she finally answered, albeit begrudgingly. Fine, but when you say gift, what do you mean exactly? Hoping that he didn't mean the way she thought it sounded like to her. For she did not want to be some child's plaything. For that I do not care. You may present yourself to him in any way you so see fit. You may present yourself as his mother, sister, friend, or even foe. Hell, you could present yourself as his whore, I do not care. All I will say is that you will support him when he truly needs it. Like I said earlier, he is not me, nobody is. For that very reason he will need support, no matter how much I wish to deny it. My descendants will never be as strong as me, and I will never share my most prized treasures with any of them. So that is why you will be my first gift, and as for the second, it will be a gate of Babylon. She looked at him confused, for she knew what the gate was, but it was what he said that confused her. You just said that you would never share your precious treasures, but isn't the gate filled with treasures? She questioned curiously. Yes and no, he has his own gate. His gate is its very own and not shared with anyone. I stored weapons and treasures in this gate from this world when I was here in this dimension long ago. I also add a few less powerful copies of weapons from my world too. He stated with a voice full of pride. Now I must return to my dimensional world. For a war is starting and I intend to add another treasure to my gate. For only I deserve her. He said in tone that said that he would not lose anything no matter what side he chose. As he started to dissolve, he spoke one more time. Ah yes, I almost forgot. I broke down the seal so that you may bring him in here until he is able to do so by himself. You will also be able to leave the seal in a few years because of what I did to it. Watch over him because I can sense if he dies, and if I find you to be the cause, beast, I will come back to this world and personally drive a sword through your head. For only I have the right to kill my successor. And with that said, he completely dissolved into nothing, disappearing from this world. Kurumi could only sigh. She was now stuck with a child that was the descendant of an asshole that is not even from this world, and said man could come back and kill her. Oh, how the gods must hate her. To curse he with such a life. She then looked at the child that was laying on the bed. The child that she would need to watch over. She walked over to the bed and sat on it looking at the boy. He had sun-kissed yellow hair bordering on gold. With light fair skin with no marks except for the 3 whisker-like marks on each cheek. Which if she was honest found cute about the small fragile child. He then squirmed in the bundle that held him and opened his blood-red eyes. Wait. Blood-red eyes. She thought. I swore he had purple, she exclaimed out loud. She then realized that this was his mark. Gilgamesh's way to mark him as his successor. She could only stare at the boy in mild shock. She then unwrapped the bundle of cloth and stared at the child's body. There on his body were the red tattoo-like lines that Gilgamesh also possessed. The only thing that brought her out of her shocked state was the fact that he giggled and laughed in a joyful way. Most likely at her expression she guessed. She sighed again, took the child into her arms and cradled him near her as the child then slowly fell back to sleep. Me the great Kyuubi no Yuko reduced to a babysitter, damn that man. She said in a frustrated then looked at the child that began to snuggled up against her and thought. She sighed one more, laid on the bed while putting the child next to her and bringing him close to her and thought while wrapped her arms around the child. Maybe this won't be so bad. Pasture. As both parents hurried to the children they noticed that the 3rd Hokage had arrived with his 3 students, the legendary Sannin. The sage of Mount Myobuku Jiraiya, the slug princess Tsunade, and lastly the snake sage Orochimaru. As they arrived to the spot that their children were, Kushina picked up both her daughter and son and held them close. As she held them Minato came up beside her and looked down at his children. They're both beautiful, whispered Kushina. Yes they are Kushina. What are their names? You never told me and we were both in rush to seal the Kyuubi. Replied Minato. That was when the other 4 people finally made it in front of them and also waited for her to reply. Wondering what it could be. Her name is Mito after my great-grandmother's sister and first Hokage's wife. At that moment, the now named Mito opened her eyes and they all started in awe and the serial blue eyes that looked at them in confusion and curiosity. She then pulled herself away from her daughter and looked at her son and said, and this beautiful boy here is Naruto. Fish cakes. Jiraiya laughed humorously. He was the hit on the head by Tsunade. It means maelstrom you idiot. She told me earlier what she was going to name her son if she had one. Minato then looked at Jiraiya. We also said that we would name him after the main character in your book sensei. Jiraiya looked at Naruto's sleeping form and smile. He then looked at Minato with a serious face. Which one? Kushina, Hiruzen, and Tsunade all looked curiously at him, wondering what he had meant. Until Minato only replied with, daughter. The rest only stared wondering what he meant. Until Orochimaru answered for them. Jiraiya believes whichever holds the chakra of the tailed beast is some kind of saver. I don't understand why he would believe such a thing though. Yes, it's exactly what I think because there is a prophecy that the great toad sage foresaw and he stated, twins will be one day be born and the one that holds great power will be fated to save the world from a great destruction. This twin will have a great burden and will face many foes, but if the twin survives long enough it will be presented with a choice. A choice that will determine the fate of the world. Once that choice is made the world will be either be at peace or be plunged into a dark age. Isn't it obvious? It's referring to a Jinchuriki with how it refers to a great burden and I believe it to be Mito. He stated. They all looked at him with disbelieving looks. Kushina was the first to speak. Is that really true? Yes. Jiraiya stated with a serious tone. Oh come on, you can't really believe him, Kushina. It's just a load of bullshit that some old toad is saying to most likely get Jiraiya out of his hair. Tsunade stated angrily, not believing that Jiraiya would bring something like that up at the current monument. I have to agree with Tsunade on this one, Jiraiya. The previous Monkey King also said this to the current king, which is my personal summon, but the current king said that this was said over 100 years ago, so I honestly doubt that it would be one of them. Stated the third. I also agree with Tsunade Jiraiya. Mainly for the same reasons that Sensei said. The snakes also had a similar prophecy, but like Sensei's summons, was foreseen almost 100 years ago. Added Orochimaru. Well, I believe it. Ma and Pa came to me a few days before me and Kushina found out we were having twins. They said that they believed one of the twins to be the child of prophecy. Stated Minato with pride. Well, I still don't believe it, and I think you're a fool if you believe some old toad. Said Tsunade while Sarutobi and Orochimaru nodded their heads in agreement. Hey, where did Kushina go? Asked the third. It was then that everyone heard a blood-curdling scream and quickly looked at the ritual stone that the two children were once on. What they saw shocked them. Kushina stood there with Mito in her arms and holding her away from a crying Naruto that was laying there in a bundle on the ritual stone. They all rushed over to see what was wrong. Minato went straight to Kushina to try and calm him down with Jiraiya right behind him, while the other three went to Naruto and tried to calm him down. What's the matter? What wrong? Are you in pain? Is Mito hurt? Is Naru? Minato was cut off immediately by a frightened Kushina. Do not call that thing Naruto because it's not my son, yelled Kushina. What do you mean? Minato asked as he turned to see Orochimaru out of all people holding his son while Tsunade got Naruto to stop crying by poking his belly and nose, making him laugh. You mean because Orochimaru is holding him without crying? Minato joked. I heard that, muttered the snake sage. No, Minato, look at his eyes. His eyes say everything, said the frightened mother. Minato was confused. He has never seen Kushina like this. So he walked over to the snake summoner and looked down at the boy that is his son. What he saw made him pale. No, it can't be, he muttered. There before him was not his son. He knew for a fact that this was not his son. How did he know? He knew because of its eyes. Its eyes were what gave it away. He looked back at a crying Kushina and back to his so no, not son it. He looked back at it. Straight into its eyes. Konoha. 8 years after the Kyuubi attack. Many things happened in the last 8 years within the village of Konoha. Some good while others bad. After the attack on the village had finished, many people were asking questions and the leader of said village had to answer. The first question was why? Well, their leader the Hokage had no idea why, if he was honest, and only really could guess what the reason was. Seeing that his old student being said attacker was dead. The next question was who? That was an easy question to answer but had extreme backlashes. After explaining to the people that the Kyuubi was freed by an Uchiha, many questioned the loyalty of the Uchiha, while others straight out lost all faith for said clan. That caused a lot of tension between the villagers and the clan, and an extreme distrust within the ranks of his ninja, to the point that some were discriminated against in public. This caused a major problem for Minato, for it started the planning of a coup d'état, something that he could not afford to deal with and needed to take care of quickly after he already tried to dissolve the situation peacefully. Though the only thing that he could think of, to stop the coup, was to eliminate the clan entirely. Minato had thought long and hard on how he could do it, and it only brought him one answer. Itachi Uchiha, also known as the prodigy of the Uchiha clan. He was the only person he could think of that could get rid of the clan. He was one of the most powerful Uchiha and was claimed to be the next Madara. But the thing that was the most notable about him was that he was extremely loyal to Konoha. So when asked to come to his office and questioned if he could kill off his clan, he had answered yes and only asked that he spare his brother. Minato was hesitant at first but finally agreed because he knew that if he didn't agree he couldn't ask anyone else to do the deed, and with that, the Uchiha clan was gone. Killed in a single night, with the only survivor being a 6-year-old boy named Sasuke. Though thinking of the boy made him think of his son. His son, that was something that was always difficult to think about. To this day he still doesn't know if the child was actually his son or the Kyuubi based on what Tsunade and Orochimaru said 8 years ago. Flashback 8 years ago. Minato looked into its blood-red eyes as it started back at him in confusion. It reached its arms out as if asking for him to take it out of the snake summoner's arms. As he did this, Tsunade and Hiruzen watched Minato. They watched his every move since they heard him mutter something. Then as quick as lightning, Minato reached into his kunai pouch, pulled out a triprong kunai into a reverse hand grip, lifted it up into the air and proceeded to plunge it down into the thing that was in the snake summoner's arms. As he watched as the blade got closer and closer to the thing's skin, he didn't notice the punch that was coming towards his face. So when it finally hit, he wasn't ready. The force of the punch had heralded him across the pasture till he finally hit a tree and slid to the ground in an almost comical fashion. "What the is wrong with you?" Tsunade screamed at him. "Why the hell would stab a child, let alone your newborn son?" As he tried to get his bearings, Kushina answered, "He is the Kyuubi. The proof is his eyes. They're red like the Kyuubi's, and don't you even say, how would you know? I had the damn thing inside of my stomach. So I damn well know." The three were stunned by Kushina's outburst and remained quiet until Hiruzen spoke. "Kushina, you can't be serious. Why would you ever think like that about your son? Why would he even be the Kyuubi?" Minato answered for her. "We know because the seal used on Naruto to hold the soul of the Kyuubi was never meant to hold a soul. It was meant for large chakra sources, and Bekasu's the Shinigami only sealed the soul of the beast and not the chakra. He had no idea if it would hold." They all looked shocked at him, and then Hiruzen asked a question that they all had. "If you truly summoned the Shinigami, why didn't it take your soul?" "Because I improved the jutsu to summon him. But listen, I'm not sharing it. It would cause an outrage and people would constantly use it, so it's staying up here." Pointing at his head. But back on topic. The Shinigami also stated that there was no real seal to hold only the soul of anything. Minato said in a serious tone. "Well, what about the other Jinchuriki?" "That's exactly what I thought, but the more I thought of it, no one's ever tried to seal only the soul of the tailed beast. So I guessed it has something to do with the chakra of a tailed beast that truly holds them down in a seal." Again answered Minato. "Okay, even if that's true, the Shinigami said he had no idea. So that might mean that he's perfectly fine." Tsunade quickly replied. "The eyes are all I need to see to confirm it." Kushina yelled back. "So what now? Everyone that has red eyes is the Kyuubi. What about your old apprentice Kurenai? She has red eyes, or what about your friend Makoto and her entire clan? If anything, her eyes are way more dangerous than Theseus." She yells, pointing at Naruto's blood-red eyes. She then waits for Kushina to respond. But she never does and continues. "What about you, Minato? Your clan have red eyes once upon a time," she says, looking at him pointedly. "What do you mean? I don't recall my clan having red eyes," replied a confused Minato. I guess listening to that Haruno lady and doing some research wasn't such a bad idea." Tsunade mutters under her breath. She then quickly continued. "Well, I heard one of your old fangirls mention a while back that your clan, the Namikaze, had red eyes." "Tsunade, I know that's not true. Even though I don't remember much of my parents or other clan members, I know for a fact that they didn't have red eyes." "Well, apparently they did," Tsunade replied quickly. "I didn't believe it either until I finally looked into your background when I first heard that Kushina was seeing you. While I was looking into you, I remembered what your fangirl said and was curious, so I also looked into your clan." She stopped to take a breath and continued. "It took a lot of digging. To the point that I looked at old letters between the Senju, Namikaze and other clans to find what I was looking for. And I finally found it in a letter between two lovers, where one stated that they loved the color of their red eyes and that they were the most beautiful out of the clan. It didn't make sense to me, so I looked at the signature and what date it was signed. It was then that I realized why it was possible for your clan to have red eyes, and that was because the letter was dated over 90 years ago. Meaning your clan practiced incest, which kept that trait dominant, but must have later allowed for outsides to come in, which decreased the amount of red-eyed Namikaze over time." Minato was surprised by this. It meant that he now knew something new about his almost deceased clan, but also that the child that was in Orochimaru's arms was possibly his son. There was also the possibility that it still wasn't. So he was conflicted. Take in his possible son or kill the Kyuubi now. How about you take him in Minato and at any sign of him being the Kyuubi report it to use or kill him? Orochimaru said in a calm tone. No, I will not have to. Started Kushina but was cut off by Minato. Fine, but if I feel even the smallest thing that resembles the Kyuubi I'll slit its throat. He said in a dead serious tone. Oh thank God. At least you gave the child a chance. Said Hiruzen in a relieved tone. Minato your ream. She was cut off by him again. I know what the Shinigami said but I can't live with myself if I end up killing the child thinking it was the Kyuubi but in the end it being my son. So for that reason we will take him in and wait. He said in a tone that sounded worried. I can't do that Minato. I know for a fact that that isn't our son. It's like this maternal instinct inside me that's telling me that that isn't our child but something else. She said in a sure tone. Minato looked at Kushina and knew that she would never willingly take the child in. So he decided something then and there. He knew that what he was about to do would strain their marriage but it had to be done to watch over the child. Kushina, I request. No, I demand that you are not to kill that child and that you will help raise it. By order of your Hokage. Minato said in a serious tone. Everyone there stood shocked at what Minato had said. He had ordered his wife not as a husband but as her superior. Though the most surprised was Kushina herself. She felt almost betrayed. No, she didn't feel fully betrayed, only partly. She knew what her husband was going through and though he had hope, she did not. She knew that he was the Kyuubi and that Minato just hadn't accepted that yet. She was about to retort on how he was an idiot and how that wasn't their son until she thought of something. If she agreed to this, then she could torment the beast all she wanted. It had no chakra and was extremely weak. This was the perfect opportunity and it's not like her husband ordered her to take care of it. Only not kill it and raise it. So she'll do just that. Fine if those are my orders Hokage. Then fine but have fun sleeping on the couch for the next year. She said in a cold tone and began to walk away. Hey, just because the plan she made calmed her down doesn't mean that she was still angry with him for ordering her. She got you there Minato. Said Jiraiya humorously. Hey Kushina, wait, yelled Minato and was about to chase after her but stopped and turned around. Can you take Naruto to the hospital for a checkup? I don't think that Kushina should be around him for now. So let's give her some time. He said in a rushed tone. And then ran after Kushina to try and calm her down with Jiraiya following him at a more relaxed pace. Flashback end. Ever since that day he still doesn't know if he's made the right choice. Though he's started to drift more towards him being his actual son because not once has there been any of the beast's chakra in him. He even got one of the Hyugas to check his chakra network with their famous Byakugan. Though he said he saw a minuscule amount but that was to be expected, him being born from a Jinchuriki. So maybe it was time to accept that he wasn't the Kyuubi. Maybe he could discuss it with Kushina over dinner. Well, let's finish up these papers up. The sun is about to set and dinner should be ready soon. Thought Minato as he smiled about seeing his kids and caring wife. Slums of Konoha. The slums were not a strange place to the small child that walked down its streets. He had slept here when his family would accidentally lock him out of his house. He had been here when his mom had left the park without him with his sister. This boy was Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze. He had blonde hair that looked golden and was down. His hair was long enough to go past his ears and almost down to his blood-red eyes. Think of Kid Gilgamesh from Fate Kaleid. If you don't know that then look up. Kid Gilgamesh, he had tan skin that didn't have a single blemish or mark. Even with all the things that not only his mother did but also what his mother allowed the village to do to him. She had called it mother-son bonding when she did it. Though it always confused him why his bonding time was always when they were alone and why his hurt from the whippings or cuts from the blades she had. While during his sister's bonding time got treats and would play games with her. He saw how she treated his sister and would admit, he was jealous. He didn't hate his sister though. No, It was quite the opposite because he actually loved his sister with all his heart. She was one of the few rays of sunshine that he had, in his miserable life. Not even his father cared enough to do anything. Well, he would never know if he would actually do something. His father never knew of the things that his mother and village did because his scars and wounds from whatever beatings he would receive would either heal naturally or be healed by his godmother Tsunade or godfather Orochimaru. They would sometimes ask him if they could tell his father about the things that she did to him, but he would always vividly refuse for two reasons. The first was that his mother threatened to harm his dear sister. One of the few people that didn't look at him weirdly, that didn't call him names, that played with him. That would include him in activities even when his mother looked downright pissed at the suggestion but would keep up a happy face. His sister, Mito. Even though he never knew if she would actually go through with the threat from seeing how she treated her. He never took the risk. The second was that he knew that he possessed the Kyuubi within him and that she thought he was the Kyuubi. Yes, knew he had the Kyuubi's soul, and he remembers the beautiful lady and that beautiful palace-like home that he had in his head. He remembers very vividly the first time that he was brought to that place. Flashback in Mindscape. 1 year ago. How could they be doing this to him? She thought. He's only a child. She yelled to no one. How could they do this to her precious as Naruto that she had grown to love so much? Kurumi was sitting in a chair that was in the main bedroom, crying. She had just watched her Naruto go through another beating. One that was far worse than the normal ones he received. She knew that even though it wasn't her that had marked him with the red eyes and tattoos. She knew that they linked those traits to him being her, causing him this grief and pain from the village and from his own family. As she sat there crying and wallowing in self-pity and guilt, she heard a sniffle from the bed and it made her stop. She wiped the tears away from her eyes, stood up and looked to see who was on the bed. She didn't want anyone to see her crying. She still had a reputation to uphold. Especially if it was that asshole of a man Gilgamesh again. Though all thought of that went out the window when she saw who was on the bed crying. It was her Naruto, laying there on the bed curled up into a ball, whispering for it to stop. She ran to the bed and crawled over to him, quickly taking his head and placing it on her lap. She then began to try and calm him down by whispering soothing words to him. After he finally stopped crying, he just laid there, listening to her words of comfort about how she described beautiful places she's seen. Like how she talked about the warm lush forest of Konoha or the beautiful ice crystals of the land of snow. How the sun would warm you up if you laid in an open field in grass country. The beautiful but deadly sand dunes of the land of wind and the calming sound of the oceans of the land of waves and water. He listened as she named off a few more places that he had never heard of but wished he could be there. He wished he could be anywhere than the village he was in. Then it hit him. He wasn't being stabbed anymore. He wasn't alone in some alleyway. He was on a bed, with his head on someone's lap. He then turned his head to look at the owner and immediately blushed. What he saw was a goddess, a woman, no, a creature that was on a completely different level of beauty. She had the silkiest looking hair that was a reddish orange. Her hair flowed loosely down her back to just above the waist. Her skin was a light tan with no marks or blemishes and had eyes similar to his. She wore a loose black kimono with red trim that showed a god amount of skin, which suggested she wasn't wearing anything under it. He quickly turned away, cheeks flushed to the point that a tomato would be jealous. While she giggled into her hand, amused at his reaction and finding it cute on the 7-year-old. He then spoke in a quiet voice, bordering on a whisper. Where am I? I'm not in the village, right? His voice filled with the tiniest bit of hope. She thought on how to answer him, thinking that if she lied to him now, he wouldn't trust her later. So she decided to tell the truth. Sadly, you're still in the village, Naruto-kun, she said in a sad, almost depressing tone. Then where am I exactly? This doesn't look like the village and I've never seen you around the village. He said, now raising his head off her lap and sitting on his feet to face her. This beautiful place is your mind. Everything you see and hear is a part of your mindscape, or if you would like to call it your subconscious. While pointing at his forehead. So, this isn't real then? Well, it is, but isn't. It's hard to explain. She said with a sigh. Well, if this isn't real in a way, then, are you real? He asks quietly. Yes, I'm real and I'm a part of you. She stops to think and then after a few seconds continues. Have you ever seen the black ink on your stomach that appears sometime when you get a checkup from your godmother? He nods his head in confirmation and she continues. Well, that's what you call a seal. I'm in the seal and that's how we can talk to each other right now, she says with a big smile. He was about to ask something else but then notices something shift under the back of her kimono and is surprised at what he sees. There, sticking out from the bottom of her kimono, was the tip of a furry orange tail. He then looks back at her and realizes the two fox ears sticking out from her hair. She notices his surprised face and follows his line of sight and sees one of her tails are sticking out and she sighs. Knowing that there's really no hiding it now. As she saw his mouth open to ask a question, she stopped him by gently placing a finger on his mouth to silence him. Stop, and let me show you who I am by letting you see your first memory. Can I do that? She asks him with her finger still on his mouth. He nods and she smiles. Hold my hand so you can see, she says in a calm and warm tone. Flashback end. To say the least, he was surprised when he saw his first memory that day. He felt happiness that his godmother, godfather and Gigi loved him. Surprised that the Kyuubi's soul was in him and her chakra was in his sister and that she didn't attack Konoha purposely. Though not very surprised about holding the Kyuubi whose name was Kurumi. Mostly because of how his mother and villagers treated him. Though there was one emotion that was the most powerful that day, sadness. He was sad with how his mother had from upon looking at him hated him, thinking he was the Kyuubi. Though being the naive 5-year-old he said that he'd get his mother to see that he wasn't the Kyuubi. Even though Kurumi had argued against it saying that it wouldn't work, but he was stubborn and had made his mind up already. So for the next 3 years he took everything she threw at him with a smile on his face. He did everything she asked. Took every mother-son bonding day without crying, no matter how much he wanted to and more. Hoping that by doing this she would realize her mistake of thinking he wasn't the Kyuubi. That was one of 2 reasons that he was here in the slums today actually. Though the second was because it involved his sister. Tomorrow was his sister's birthday and she needed him to get the gift she had ordered. Of course, if it meant his sister's happiness he was happy to help. Though he was brought out of his musing when he heard a voice in his head said something. You know that this is a bad idea, right? Ku-chan, I know what you're thinking, but you don't have to worry, okay? Most people are already closing up their shops. So there's not a lot of people here to come after me. Plus, it's for Mito, so I have to go. He thought to her. I understand that you hold your sister in a high place, but this doesn't feel right. Plus, why not send you to the market to pick up a gift? That would make much more sense. Yeah, it would. But the address that's on the paper looks like the address to that book shop I saw last week. Maybe there's a book there that isn't in the market. You mean the one you saw when you were being chased? Yeah, that one. It looked like there was a lot of books in there. He said happily. Naruto, I don't know why you trust that woman, and I know no matter what I say you won't change your goal. She said with a sigh. Just be careful, alright? Your godparents aren't here to help you anymore and the third isn't alive either. Plus I told you I can't do more than heal you. Unless you want people to think you're the Kyuubi. I know. He thought in a depressed tone. I'm sorry Naruto, I didn't mean to bring back those memories. She said in a soft tone while internally she was kicking herself. She forgot how touchy those subjects were. What she said brought back painful memories of how almost every person that he cared for left him. His godfather left because he was branded a criminal 3 years ago. His godmother left because her lover had died and said she had to take a break from the village, though she did say she'd return in a year. That was 9 months ago, so hopefully she'll be back in 3 months. She left him in the hands of his pseudo-grandfather who died of a heart attack of all things 5 months ago. He was probably reading those stupid books that would make him giggle when I was by his house. He thought to himself. The only people that didn't treat him badly was his dear sister, those nice ramen chefs that would sometimes give him free food when he was locked out, and Kurumi. It's fine, they wouldn't want me depressed, he said with a fake smile and in a tone that seemed hollow. Anyways, I see the shop mom wanted me to pick up the gift from. She sighed. Okay then, call if you need me, alright. I'm going to take a nap. And with that disconnected the link. As he walked up to the shop and peered through the window, he didn't notice the figure that was hidden in the shadows on top of the shop. I can't believe she was serious. She left the seal tag and a note here. Well, if it says anyway, then I got an idea, he said quietly. As Naruto looked through the window, he noticed that the shop looked like it was closed, as there were no lights on or anything. He then walked up to the door and saw a small folded note there on the ground. He looked down and picked it up. Maybe they left a note for the gift being late or something, he thought. He then opened the letter and read a single sentence that filled him with dread. There on the note read, I fooled the fox. Love, Mama. He was then roughly turned around by a hand that was placed on his shoulder and punched hard in the temple. The punch made him fall and left him dazed and dizzy on his back. As his head started to clear, he rolled onto his stomach and he tried to crawl away until he felt something hit the back of his head. His eyes felt heavy from the hit and was about to succumb to the darkness that was surrounding his vision, but was forced out of it by the feeling of sticky liquid coming from the back of his legs. He was confused by the feeling until he turned his head to look at the back of his knee and was scared stiff when he noticed he could no longer move his leg. Guess working under the snake was useful. Hey, I just cut the muscle that won't let you walk if torn. So you're not going? Hey, where you going? He said as he noticed Naruto start to crawl using only his arm. You're not going anywhere. He then walked over to Naruto, plunged a kunai into his shoulder and used said kunai to drag him back to where he had originally fallen. Now I'm assuming you know who wants me to do this because of the note that you picked up. Right. Naruto didn't answer him, and looks away with tears streaming down his face. He didn't want to believe what the note said. The man then ripped out the kunai that was buried in the back of his right shoulder and plunged it into his left, causing him to yell out in pain. Right? He asked again. This time Naruto nodded his head. Good. I've been told to break your spirit in any way, and trust me when I say this. I plan to do so and I'm going to enjoy it. So why don't you lay there like a good little demon and let Uncle Mizuki work, okay? He said in an all-too-happy voice. Naruto didn't even get a moment to respond because he felt a kunai cut his lower leg just above his foot. He yelled out in pain as he felt the cold steel enter his body. That's the Achilles heel. You're defiantly not walking anytime soon. Naruto heard him say in a gleeful tone. Naruto was with all his might trying to escape even when he knew that it was pointless. He had to try. So he pulled himself with his arms even though both shoulders were bleeding and had stab wounds on them. One even still having the knife in his shoulder still. He then noticed Mizuki's feet in front of him and was about to try and crawl around him but was stopped as he felt an intense pain in his hand. He looked over and saw another kunai going through his hand. He then felt another intense pain in his other hand and saw that it was the same as the first. You're only making this harder on yourself, he heard him say. He then felt the ripping of skin as the two kunais that kept his hands on the ground ripped out of his hands. Well, she said, break you right. So I think I know of a much faster way to do this. Naruto heard him say, but what he heard next scared him stiff and he froze. No, that isn't what I think it is, he thought. He slowly turned his head and saw that Mizuki was slowly unbuckling his pants. So with renewed vigor he tried to escape even with all the pain he felt all around his body. He forced his legs to move even though they felt like lead. He made his arms move even with the kunai still in his shoulder, and he forced his hands to grab onto anything that was on the ground to pull him further away from the man that was about to rape him, even though he had huge holes in his hand. "Where do you think you're going?" he heard Mizuki say. He then used the kunai in his shoulder to drag him back once again. "I was about to have some fun," he said as he ripped out the kunai, causing blood to splurt out from the wound. Mizuki used said knife, cut open his pants, and then proceeded to flip him onto his back. "I want to watch the shock and horror when you demon. I want to see the Kyuubi's mind break and shatter into 1,000 pieces when my enters that little of yours," he yelled with glee. Naruto was crying and pleading with Mizuki to stop. "I'm not the Kyuubi. I didn't do anything, I swear." He could do nothing. He couldn't move anymore, it hurt too much. He could only stare as Mizuki lined up his with his. "Please stop. Please," he pleaded, as Mizuki thrust forward and watched with glee. "Stop," he yelled out one last time, eyes still closed. Just as he was about to penetrate it, he noticed a gold ripple behind the demon. The Izda. He never finished that sentence, as there was a loud squelch, and the sound of a body hitting the floor. Naruto then opens his eyes, looking to see what happened while trying not to succumb to the sweet release that the darkness promises, but it was too much. Though just as he passes out, he looks up to see a dead Mizuki with a giant hole on his stomach and a golden sword that is starting to dissolve into golden dust just behind the body. Mindscape. Naruto appeared the same way he did a year ago. A crying mess, and Kurumi was quick to comfort him, trying to get the boy she loved to stop. Using her soothing words and running her hand through his hair, she was able to calm him down. It was quiet until Naruto asked a question. "Why does she hate me so much? Why do the people hate me?" His tone was depressed. "Ku-chan, do you hate me?" "Naruto, listen and listen closely. Don't ever ask that question again," she said in a serious tone, but her voice became softer as it continued. "I could never hate you. I love you, Naruto." She hated how broken he sounded. Gone was the positive and cocky tone, now replaced by a tone filled with sadness and depression. "You do?" he asked in a hopeful tone. "More than you could imagine," she said, and then continued. "Though to your other question, I don't know how anyone could hate you. You are the kindest human to walk this earth. You gave your mother a chance to see her mistakes and even forgave her for the things she's done in the past. You hated the village but never left, and instead of lashing out, you gave them chances. I don't think the village or your family deserve someone like you." It was quiet after she said that. "Kurumi, I'm done with forgiving the people of this village and my mother. After what happened tonight, I don't want to," he said in a shaky voice. "I want to leave the village." "Oh, well, technically you're already out of the village. Wait, what?" he said as he now got off her lap to sit on his feet. "Yeah, well, that kinda happened when you pasted out. A man carried you out of the village," she said in an almost embarrassed tone. "Wait, I wanted to get Mito to come with me first. What if my mother does something to her?" he said in a worried voice. "Naruto, we both know that she's fine. Both your mother and father will take care of her," she said in an almost jealous tone, though Naruto didn't catch it. It always annoyed her how his sister was always almost first with everything, and how he would tell her how he spent the day with her or something akin to that, but she really couldn't blame him. She was one of the few people that actually cared about him. He sighed. "I guess you're right. How much longer until I wake up? I can send you back now if you want." "No, I mean, can I just stay here a bit longer, please?" Kurumi giggled at his reaction before replying. "All right, but you'll probably wake up in the next few minutes. Can we lay in the bed?" he asked, a little embarrassed. Kurumi smiles at him. "Of course," she replies as she gets off to bed to pull the red blankets back. Naruto then climbs in with her, following him. She then pulls the blankets back over them and protectively wraps her arms around Naruto, who is facing her, and places her chin on top of his head. "Kurumi, be honest with me. Did I kill Mizuki?" he asks her in a soft tone. She separates from the embrace just enough to look at him, who is avoiding her eyes. She sighs, not knowing how he'll take the answer. The 8-year-old's mind was already cracked, and any more might break him. It was a miracle that he even allows any type of human contact, what with the traumatic event that he just got done having. Please don't lie, I can take it. I know that that weird-looking sword didn't just randomly appear. He again says in a soft tone. I just want to make sure. She sighs. She's been doing that a lot today. He saw the sword. So there's no way to really deny it. Yes, you did. You used something akin to a bloodline. What's a bloodline? He asks curiously. Oh yeah, forgot. He's only 8. Doesn't know what that is. I'll explain the whole thing later, but to sum it up, you can use an ability that your clan or really old family members have. That's so cool, was his reply. So I used this bloodline thing to kill him. So what, can I summon swords and stuff? He asked excitedly. Kurumi can only giggle at his reaction before answering. Yes and no, it's not like normal bloodlines, and I'm pretty sure you can summon more than just swords. I'll help you with it later. Alright. You promise? I promise. She says with a smile on her face. Though I think it's also time to wake up. And with that he disappeared from the bed they were laying on. Real world, somewhere outside of Konoha. The night sky is the first thing that Naruto sees when he wakes up. The sight amazes him because when in the village, it can be difficult to see the night sky with all the lights on the village. He could see every constellation that his sister would tell him about. He could see the glowing stars that Ku-chan told him about. Then Naruto is brought out of his shock by the voice of a stranger. Beautiful, isn't it? It says in a tired voice. Back where I'm from, this is an extremely rare sight. Where I'm from, we have extremely tall buildings that would illuminate the sky and prevent us from seeing the night sky's beauty. Mister, where are you from? I've never heard of any place that has buildings so tall it illuminates the sky. Naruto asks the stranger, now getting a better look at the stranger that was sitting on a log as he sits up. The man dressed in a black trench coat, and it looked like he wore a black suit under the coat with a white undershirt and matching black tie. He had light tan skin, a thin face with sharp features, and black pupil-less eyes that looked empty and broken. He also had jet black hair that stuck out from all sides, and to finish this mysterious look, he had a lit cigarette in his mouth. The man then looked at him. I'm not from around here. Hey, you could even say I'm from a completely different world. Are you the man that took me out of the village? Yes, I am. I was leaving when I heard a sound that sounded like yelling. So I went to see, and there I found you on the ground unconscious, pants slashed, covered in stab wounds, and a man on death's door with a hole through him. Wait, he wasn't dead? Naruto almost yells. No, he wasn't at the moment I got there, but I'm certain he's dead now. It's been 3 hours since we left, and with the hole in his chest the size it was, I doubt he's still alive, he stated in a calm voice. Now what's your name, kid? My name is Naruto Uze. He stopped himself and looked away from the man. He didn't want to be called that. What if he recognizes the name? No, since he's decided to leave the village he needs a new name, or he can have no name at all. He can start fresh, a clean slate. He then looked back at the man. Naruto, just Naruto. That's a strong name. Naruto. Said boy looks at the man with a smile. Now what's your name? The man stares at him as if judging if he should give his name or not. Though after a long silence he finally stated in a calm voice. Kuritsugu Emiya. West Empire. Empire's palace. The sun is something that has been around this planet for millions of years. It provides the light for the day so people can see. It provides warmth for the planet and gives a farmer's crops the nutrients it needs to survive. The sun can be very helpful and life-giving, but the sun can be a terrible thing as well. It can cause droughts and has the ability to kill people if they're not careful. The sun can be many things, but right now it was being annoying. Yes, annoying is the right word. Very annoying. Was the thought of a blonde man that was in a big bed with 2 women, each laying a head on his chest. The sun was pouring into the room, as there was only one wall holding up the ceiling that separated this room from the next. Only the pillars that cast large shadows across the room formed the rising sun. His palace resembled his Mindscape palace with the exceptions that the bed itself was elevated 2 steps. Instead of a tropical jungle forest, like in his Mindscape, it was his capital city. You know, sometimes I wish I didn't design my palace like the one in my head. I agree with you, Naruto. The now named Naruto looked down to his right and saw one of his wives there with her eyes closed. Can my vixen now read minds? Was his reply. No, it's just I know that you're thinking this because I am right now. Plus, we don't want to get out of bed and don't want you to leave because you're the pillow. Said Kurumi. Wait, you said we as in more than you? Yes, I'm awake as well and I agree with Kurumi. You are too comfortable and I wish not to wake. I like the way you think, Retsu. Said Kurumi with a soft giggle. Naruto now looked at the woman on his left and sees his other wife Retsu Unohana, a woman that had black hair, pale skin with dark blue eyes and slim but curvy body. She too has her eyes closed. Though he notices a small smirk that appears on her face. He smiles back and again looks up at the ceiling and says, you know that even if we don't get up, she'll come get us up. Yeah, I know, but I want to just sleep a little bit more before we have to get up. So why don't we wait for her to come? What do you say, Retsu? Yes, I believe that is a wand, though the sound of soft pitter-pattering stopped her. They all listen as the 3 adults hear the small sound of a child's footsteps coming closer to the bed. It stops and then they all feel a weight by their feet as a child climbs up on top of the bed. And proceeds to crawl upwards and sits herself on Naruto's stomach. Papa, are you going to get up? You said you'd take me to visit Uncle Ken and Auntie Tuka today. Says the excited voice of the child. Naruto now looked down at the child that was his 4-year-old daughter, who was sitting on his stomach. The girl was about 3.5 feet tall with light tan skin that was slightly lighter than his. She had teal hair which was similar to her mother's and a red line tattoo that she got from him that went from one side of her face to the other under her eyes and went across the bridge of her nose. She had hazel eyes that were more green than brown and had a skull-like mask on her head that was cracked. The last gift from her mother. I know I said that, baby girl, but can't you let your moms and dads sleep for just a little bit longer? Naruto asked her tiredly. But you said we'd leave early. Nell cutely whined. Retsu spoke up this time. How about this? If you let us sleep for a bit longer, he'll get you something sweet. Naruto just looked at Retsu and sighed. Though if you looked closely you could see the small smile that he made. This got Nell to go wide-eyed with excitement. Realry. Yeah, Papa will get you something really sweet. Naruto could only watch his little girl with a smile. But you said you want us to get up, so I guess there's no sweets. He said as he started to rise from his bed, causing Nell to roll off his stomach and into his lap, but she quickly got back up. No, 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 Papa can sleep longer, she responded quickly as she tried and was failing to push him back down so he could go back to sleep. Nell, I have to actually get up. Let your mothers sleep, alright, they have going to do stuff today. But Dad means no sweets. She said as tears started to appear in her eyes. She knew this face would get her father and mothers to come around. It had work almost every time. It was a face that even the most hardened and cruel warlords couldn't ignore and would bend over backwards to prevent a tear from falling. Damn that cute face. It's not fair, was the thought of the 3 in the bed. Alright, I'll get you some sweets on the way to their house to share. Is that alright? You promise? Yes, Nell, I promise, he said with a warm voice. Den pinky swear, cause last time ya promised we would get sweets, we got sweets da day after. And I don't wanna to wait till tomorrow. So pinky swear. But you got sweets still. I don't thin. He was stopped as he saw her stick out hand and balled it into a fist with only the pinky finger sticking out. He knew that she wouldn't budge until he did a pinky swear. Though he really didn't mind. It was his and her little thing that was special, and he thought it was cute. He chuckled and then smiled. All right, all right. He then stuck out his hand and wrapped his pinky finger around her small one. She then began to swing both their hands side to side and she sang her special pinky tune, as he and his wives called it. Cross my heart, and hope to die, I'll eat 1,000 needles if I lie, pinky promise song. She then looked at him with most serious face a 4-year-old could muster up, which only made her cuter than she already was. Now ya can't lie alright cause I don't want ya to eat 1,000 needles papa. She said to him worriedly. This got him to smile. It was times like these that he would cherish. When his little baby girl is so innocent. Alright, then why don't you go get ready so we can leave, and I'll meet you in the throne room. She nodded her head in excitement and then jumped off his bed running towards her room. Oh, and Nell, if you see Walter, tell him good luck on his date and that I know how he spends his days off. Okay, was all she said as she ran out. Ha, now I have to get her something. He then looked at his wives who still haven't moved from their positions in the bed. Will you two show up later or will you go out? Kurumi was the first to speak. I think Retsu and I will wait for Korra, if she arrives early, and have a girls' day. What did you think, Retsu? Yes, that would be nice. I haven't seen Korra in a few months now. It would be nice to catch up with her, was Retsu's response. Alright, then I'll see you two tonight at the meeting. Naruto said as he started to get out of bed, kissed both on the forehead and then proceeded to walk out of the room. As he walked he snapped his fingers opening a 6-foot-sized golden ripple that matched his size. He then walked through and felt his clothes started to materialize on him. He wore a tight black sleeveless compression shirt that hugged the lean muscled body he had, much to the pleasure of his wives. He also had a golden collar necklace, think Egyptian, that had a small single ruby in the middle. He wore tight black Anbu-like pants that were covered by a long red shendit and went to the back of his calves. Over that was gold armor that was trimmed with navy blue, that went over his pants and covered his waist and both his legs. Same as cover picture for story but with a gold necklace and black sleeveless compression shirt and no armor on his arm. As he walked to his throne room he thought on how the past 11 years had shaped his life and made him the man he is today. In those 11 years since he left with his father he had experienced almost all the pain and joy that an old man had experienced throughout his entire life, he experienced it in only 11 years. He remembers how he and his father made the journey through the desert of the land of wind and how he made his first friend while staying in Sunagakure, his name being Gaara. Gaara was a small boy that had red hair like his mother, what looked to be eyeshadow around his eyes and had a kanji for love on his forehead. He was lonely like him and they bonded over the shared hardship of carrying a tailed beast. It was funny, even though he was a cage's kid like him. He was normal for the most part, just lonely. He later met his older siblings who he got along with pretty well and got them to fear their brother less after he and Kurumi had gotten his tailed beast, Shukaku, to make peace with Gaara. Even though it took a lot of convincing and a slight beating from Kurumi in their combined inner mindscapes. He became less violent and began to open up slightly. Though that was reserved only for his sibling in Naruto but was welcomed all the same. After about 2 months there he and his father Kuritsugu left for the west and settled down in a small village that had a forest that surrounded it, similarly to Konoha. He had stayed there for 4 years living a happy life that wasn't plagued by any grievances. He even met his first lover there at the age of 10. Though that peace did not last long. After 4 years of living there, at the age of 12, his father died and once again he was alone. Though the night before he died he told Naruto everything. About how he used to live and where he lived. How he was only here in this world because of an accident during the end of something he called the Grail War. He told him that he actually knew the ancestor that had the same abilities he had but explained he would have to find out how to use it by himself or with Kurumi. He told him his may regrets like killing his childhood friend and mother figure. He told him about his daughter and not being able to see his daughter one more time. Lastly he made Naruto promise him something. He made him promise to never hold rage against something for too long. To forgive but never to forget, and to love and keep close those he considers his family close. At the time he felt that he couldn't promise that, with all the shit that his village and mother put him through. But years later he would understand. He had never hated them completely because he understood where some of the anger came from, but to hold it against a child. Even if he was the Kyuubi, no amount of anger or justice gave anyone the right to harm a child, unless it was a ghost kid dressed as a clown, but even then he wouldn't try to kill it. So for as of right now he was at the very least willing to let bygones be bygones if they wanted to. Though he would never forget the things they did to him. He was in such deep thought about his father that he just now realized that he had walked to and was now sitting on his throne. His throne room was like the rest of his palace in the sense that it was very open and only had walls separating rooms. The room was as plain looking as you could get, but that's how he wanted it. He only had plants and flora that either hung from the side of the pillars or was planted around the room. Even the people that built his palace were surprised at how plain looking he wanted it and insisted that a king or emperor should have a more extravagant throne room, but he had refused. Though they did get one thing that made it extravagant, if slightly. His throne was 3 steps elevated off the floor. It was tall and looked to be made of gold, with the exception of a small navy blue circle that was placed right above where his head would be and was connected to a line that went down to the seat. Though it was the arm rests of the chair that made it stand out, because where his hands would rest was the carving of a lion head. As he finished admiring his throne, he heard the sound of laughter and the sound of heavy steps. He looked to where the sound came from and saw that Nell was riding on the boss of his summoning contract. "Dat way, Simba," she yelled and pointed towards himself. The lion stood at around 4 feet high and was about 2 meters long. It had a slight tan to his coat and had long flowing orange-red mane. His eyes were a lighter version of hazel that resembled a natural lion. The lion gave a tired sigh. "Naruto, your daughter is as energetic as ever. Can she just sleep in for once?" This got a laugh out of Naruto. "Well, she's like our alarm clock. She always wakes early even when we don't need to. I tell you, Simba, she can be a handful sometimes, but we love her all the same." He replied. I can agree with that." Naruto then looked at Nell. "Come on, Nell, get off of him. He just got back from something I asked him to do and I'm sure he loved to head home, okay?" She nodded and got off the lion. "Papa, let's go already. If we leave now we can get some good snacks from Da Pasty Man," she said as she tried to pull him away. "All right, Nell," was his response, and then looked at his summon. "Simba, all the messages for the meeting for the games have been delivered." "Yes, all of them have been delivered, and yes, I'm going to be at the meeting. Now I'm leaving to go rest." "Okay, then I'll see you there." And with that, Simba left with a puff of smoke. "Now let's get you those sweets, Nell." Outside the palace. The palace was the center of the capital and was surrounded by 3 districts. The first, that was to the left of the palace, was the military district, where most of the city guards would be housed and where the recruits would stay for their training until they were fit to join the ranks. On the right was the housing district, where most people lived. The clans and other important figures would stay in the compounds and house building that were closer to the palace. As you got further away the palace, the lower the class. Naruto didn't like that there were class, but he realized that that's how the world works. There will always be a higher and lower class and occasionally a middle. The last one, which was the one he was entering now, was the market district, where you could see all types of vendors and little stores that sold everything and almost anything. From foods that would make all mouths water to weapons that were made by the finest blacksmiths. If you needed something, you would almost always find it here in the market of the capital. As they walked, people that passed and noticed them, which were most because of Nell, waved with a smile on their face. They knew that their emperor didn't care for the formal hellos and greetings or wanted praise. He had many times expressed this to his people, and while they still did it on occasions, he had gotten most to stop. As they continued to walk, Nell spotted the sweets store they would always visit when promised sweets and made it known. Papa, dears Kowalski. Let's go get sweets." He sighed. I swear your little promise are going to be the death of me, you know that Nell. She just smiled at him, grabbed his hand and pulled him towards the sweets shop. This shop was one of the most well-known sweets shops around the West and was up and coming in the elemental nations, Kowalski. The shop wasn't all that grand, but that's what made it all the more inviting. The shop itself was a one-floor building and was a dark blue, with the name hanging over the two entrance doors. It also had two glass windows, one on each side of the doors, that showed off some of the sweets that they made. As the father and daughter duo entered the shop, they saw a heavier-looking man begin to pull out a batch of freshly made pastries. The man had a square-like face and was about 5 feet 5 with a mustache that reached the ends of his lips and black gelled back hair. He had light tan skin and wore a black dress shirt and tie that was covered by a white apron. He was the man that owned shop and many other shops that are under the name Kowalski. For his name was Jacob Kowalski, or as Nell had named him, the pastry man. Hey pastry man, got any sweets for me, papa? Nell said in a cute voice. Said baker turned to see who had entered his shop and was greeted with his friend and favorite little customer. Ah, what brings you, my emperor and my favorite little customer? He said in a joking tone and a smile on his face. Knowing that he would tick Naruto off with Emperor and tease little Nell with, well, little. His welcome caused a tick mark to appear on Naruto's forehead as he anticipated, and he got a cute pout from Nell. He was about to retort but was stopped when he heard Nell speak up first. I'm not little, pastry man. I'm super tough and strong, she said, flexing her arm, which caused Naruto and Jacob to sweat drop. Naruto looked at Nell. Nell, he wasn't talking about, you know what, never mind. Just pick out some of the sweets you want. He then turned back to Jacob. How are you doing, Jake, since I last visited? Naruto's question brought the slightly confused baker back to reality. He then asked a worker that came out from the back and to help Nell with her selection before answering Naruto. Yeah, everything's been fine. A few issues here and there from supply shortages, but that's because my little shop sells the most and best. Jake said in a relaxed tone. What about you? The wives treating you good? God only knows how bad they were when you shared that idea of sharing to them. I still don't know how you got them to actually share you, because I know if it were any other man that suggested what you did, they'd be cut in half by and eaten by that, not even including what would do to the poor man. He stopped and chuckled lightly. I'll tell you again, like I always do, Naruto. You're a lucky man to have 3 loving wives and such an adorable daughter. They both looked over at said girl as she oohed and ahhed at the choices before her. The sight was cute and brought a smile to both faces. Though Naruto once again pulled Jake back to his attention with a question. So how are the stores bracing the elements? I know that out there the weather can be unforgivable sometimes. Naruto asked in a calm voice. Jake looked at him and questioningly before he saw Naruto nod his head before answering. Oh, the stores have been fine. No winds to knock any down. A few stores had complained about earthquakes, but they eventually stopped. Some stores said that despite the risk of tsunamis being near the oceans, they said that there was nothing to worry about. Though that manager did say that they had a snake infestation, but surprisingly the snakes got rid of an unknown rat problem. Another said that they had a problem with a leak in their shop from the constant rain, and another said that there was almost a fire that burned down the store. Any idea how to help a rain leak or how to prevent a fire? Well, for a leak I guess you could fix the leak and wait it out, or you could move somewhere else if it's really bad. Though I would try to stay there and fix the problem. How to prevent a fire, you say? Well, I'd rebuild and see how it goes. Though I'd make sure the problem is taken care of. There was a pause as Naruto took up a thinking pose. Although I'm interested why a snake not only helped with an unknown problem but left the store alone. Yeah, I was just as confused, but hey, who am I to judge? Maybe he knows the shop won't hurt him. He keeps the rodents away and we leave him alone, but hey, listen to this. One store said that their shop was struck by lightning, and even though they had a store made of wood, the store was fine as if they were never struck. Another said that they saw a holy maiden enter their shop and that she was so beautiful that the store itself seemed to be blessed as she entered. "Ha, can you believe that?" This got Jake to chuckle lightly. "Thought this next one is the best." A store manager said that while he was working he saw a snow princess and a samurai that was carrying a sack of iron. Peef, snow princess, most likely a pale beauty, and what samurai would carry around a sack of iron? I tell you Naruto, there's a lot of strange people out there. Naruto was about to respond but was stopped by Nell. Papa, I'm done. Let's go see Uncle Ken and Aunt Tuka now. I want to see dem and eat sweets with dem. Alright, we'll get going. Naruto then turned to Jake and gave a nod with a serious face before smiling again and asking, "How much is it?" "Oh, don't worry Naruto, it's on me today," Jake said with a smile and with a nod of his own. "You sure? I have more than enough money for the cost. As I said, it's on me today, and plus you gave me advice on some issues my shops are facing. That's more than enough." Naruto sighed. "Alright, fine." He then turned back to Nell. "You better thank Jake for the free sweets." "Thank you pastry man for da free sweets," was Nell's smiling response, and with that both father and daughter walked out of the sweet shop towards the Kaneki house. The Kings and Queens, West Empire. The sky became cloudy and dark, almost as if Kami herself was upset with the world. Then he pointed his golden spear at the army before him, and then with a loud crack and boom, the army was gone, dead with a massive single lightning strike. "Are you serious? That's so cool. I want to be like him, Uncle Ichi," said a 4 feet tall girl around the age of 5 with white hair, pale skin and gray eyes. "Do you think he would teach one of us one day?" said another girl that looked the same but with the exception of her hair being black. "He wouldn't train you Kuro, he'd train me," said white-haired girl. "Nah, he wouldn't train you Shiro," was his reply of the now named Kuro. "Uncle Ichigo, who do you think he would train?" asked both Kuro and Shiro at the same time. Ichigo Kurosaki, the now named storyteller, was a tall young man at the age of 23 with a lean build. He had orange hair, peach skin and brown eyes. He wore a black kimono with white trim, black hakama and white obi, that's the names of his Shinigami clothes, could only sweat drop, and then look at the others at the table for help, but all he got was a small chuckle from his friend Naruto and a smile that promised pain if he didn't answer correctly from his other friend Kaneki Ken, father of the twin girls in front of him. Kaneki Ken was not as tall as Naruto or Ichigo but was an average height of 5 feet 6. He had white hair and gray eyes. He had a lean build as well. He wore a black dress shirt and black slacks. Well, what about you Nell, don't you want to be trained by him and become strong?" asked the now frightened man. This got the girls to direct their attention away from him and on the other girl. "I don't want to be like, what was his name again, Uncle Ichi?" asked Nell. "He doesn't have a name, or at least any that I know of, but he has a few titles like the Red Lion and the Painter," was his quick reply. "Well, I don't wanna be like this lion guy. I want to be like Papa and shoot things at da bad guys," Nell said with a happy smile as she got off the chair she was sitting on to end up sitting on Naruto's lap. This also got a small smile from Naruto. The twins then directed their attentions back to the storyteller, and would have continued to press on, but were stopped thanks to Ken interrupting. "Alright you two, why don't you take Nell back to the compound to see the new koi pond we got?" The twins then jumped with excitement and proceeded to drag Nell off from Naruto's lap and out the door with them. There was a calm silence as the three men enjoyed the quiet before the serious talk began. The silence was broken as Kaneki got up from his chair and asked if the two wanted coffee. Naruto and Ichigo agreed to a single black cup and waited for Ken to finish making the 3 cups of coffee. As they sat there, Naruto looked around from where he sat. The building that they were in was a coffee shop named Ri and was owned by Kaneki and his wife Tuka, who he suspected to be with Retsu and Kurumi. The shop felt homey with the wall shelves that held decorations from flowers to picture frames and paintings. Below the shelves were waist-high bookshelves with books that ranged from romance to history. As Naruto looked around, he saw a wall that had picture frames on it. The pictures were of many things like common costumers and get-togethers that ranged from birthdays for the twins to normal friendly get-togethers, but there was a single picture that made him stop in his observing. The picture was of a smiling woman with green hair, pale skin, and grayish-green eyes, in a beautiful ghoul wedding dress. One look at end if you don't know what I'm talking about. The picture looked to be taken right before the woman was married and brought back happy and sad memories with a bit of guilt as he looked at the woman that looked so happy in the picture. You know it's not your fault. She was happy to spend the little time she had with you and Nell. Kaneki said as he walked back with the coffees on a tray. Yeah, but I wish we had more time. I wish she saw the world that she so desperately wanted. A world where you could be anything and not have to worry about what or who you are. Where everyone's accepted. Naruto's reply was, you know, it's her birthday today. Yeah, I know. I was going to take Tuka and the twins to show them where she was buried. The twins don't really remember her though. They were too young. Kaneki says with a quiet voice. I was thinking the same, but with the tournament coming up I've been too busy. I know Nell doesn't remember her. All she knows is that her mother left her a gift in the form of a mask. I wish she got to know her mother a bit more. I'm sure she would have loved her Naruto. That got a sad smile to appear on Naruto's face. I know she would have. I mean, who didn't love her? She was so bubbly and fun. She always lifted everyone's spirits and could get anyone out of a slump. Hell, that's one of the things that made me fall for her. Ichigo then spoke up. Well, how about this? When the tournament is over we'll all go. I have to pay my respects and thank her, even after death, for saving Rukia that time on the battlefield. Naruto and Kaneki nodded their heads in agreement. Now come on, let's hear how the wonderful emperor who can conquer nations and regions is handling paperwork. Ichigo said in an upbeat voice. Not good. You know, when I said I wanted to an emperor I didn't think this much shit would come along with it. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love this country and would die protecting it, but I didn't think being emperor would entail listening to people who complained about sending my royal guard to their neighbor's house to get their chickens back from their neighbor that stole them. I mean, really, who the hell is going to send a royal guard after chickens? His outburst caused his friends to laugh. Even the ever-stoic Kaneki. Hey, don't laugh. I'd like to see you do that. It's utter bullshit, and don't even get me started on the amount of paperwork. At that very moment something happened that will confuse people for hundreds of years, because that day every leader that knew of the horror of paperwork had sneezed. This caused a slight earthquake that was felt throughout the world, even causing a volcano to erupt in a faraway land, thus destroying a nearby city. For that day will forever be known as the Shake. Hey, did you feel that slight rumble? Asked Kaneki. Both Naruto and Ichigo looked at him curiously before Ichigo spoke. No, I didn't feel anything. Why? What did you feel? Something? Never mind, must have just been my imagination. Sorry Naruto, you may continue. Konoha. Minato. Hokage-sama. I understand that it is not at the top of your most important things to listen to or worry about, but I know that they'll become a problem. Especially their leader. He is powerful and is said to rival you in power. Said a man that was covered in bandages. Danzo, I realize that AIM may become a great village and I know that you fear it. Especially after I heard what their new Amekage did to the previous, but think of it this way. If we support them now instead of fighting them, we would have a very powerful ally, was Minato's response. But if for whatever reason they become hostile, all know to come to you. The now named Danzo, who was an older man that had black hair and tan skin that was covered in bandages, looked at him with a blank stare. Danzo, I'm not stupid. I know you've been running route operations, and though I don't agree with your method of training, I do see their benefit and know that sometimes they are needed. If Danzo was surprised, he did not show it, but simply nodded before replying, "That is all I need to know. Now, if that will be all, then I would like to speak with my daughter. So please, if you would kindly leave." And with that, the old man nodded again before leaving the room. Minato sighed. It was just one of those days where work never seemed to stop, even when the work was finished. It was replaced by more and harder work. "Anbu, send for my daughter, will you?" And with that, he sensed one of the three Anbu that were tasked with protecting him to fetch his only child Mito, well, not if you counted Naruto. Naruto, now that was something that he hadn't thought about in a long time. What's it been? 9, 10, no, it's been 11 years since that child was in the village. He thought. It's almost sad. I could have had a fine weapon if I didn't let the villagers do what they did. Hell, I could have kept Tsunade in the village. If only I listened to her. Tsunade had gone to him telling him how Naruto would come to her beaten, never telling who it was and asking that she never tell anyone, but she came to him asking for him to let the beast have some peace. Of course he ignored it and told her that he would try something, but never did. Though now that he thought about it, it probably wasn't the best idea to have the beast run around the village unchained like how Tsunade and Orochimaru asked. He might have slaughtered the village like Kushina said it might. That was another thing. Kushina, his wife. She had told him how the beast would one day slaughter the village and that he should kill it. He never listened though. He thought that there was the slight possibility that the beast was not a beast and his son. That's why he let the villagers do as they pleased. For if he really was a beast, he would have killed someone that attacked it, and because of his leniency, the beast almost tricked him the Hokage and protector of this village. Mizuki was the deciding factor that had him decide that he was the beast and not his son. 11 years ago flashback. Hokage, Hokage, were the words that brought Minato out of his paperwork. The door to his office was thrown open in a hurry as his secretary came running in. "Hokage, a ninja was found on the street about 10 minutes ago, and asked to see you." What happened? Was it another village? A traitor? I don't know. All they said was that you need to go see him. He's at the hospital. Okay, I'm leaving then, was Minato's hurried response as he left. Hospital. As Minato entered the hospital, he was confronted by a blood-covered doctor. "Hokage, come with me, the man doesn't have much time to live, so we must hurry," the doctor said in a calm voice. Who was the man, and what happened? The doctor didn't even turn around as he navigated the halls of the hospital. His name is Mizuki and, well, it's better if he tells you himself. What do you mean? He was stopped as he saw the man in his ranks that was barely clinging consciousness. Hell, by all logic he shouldn't be alive. The man had a hole the size of a fist in the center of his chest, just barely missing his heart. What happened here? Minato asked Mizuki. Mizuki looked up at him and said in a shaky voice. Red-eyed, monster, attacked, me, was, Kyuubi, were the things that were said as he slowly drew his last breaths. Minato only looked at the body that was once Mizuki. Guess she was right, he isn't the son I was hoping for. He killed a soldier of this village. Anbu, give the order to look for the beast and kill it. We have the chakra, so there's no need for the body. I hope that he wasn't a beast, but he has shown his true colors now. An Anbu with a cat mask appeared before him. She had long flowing purple hair and had a slender body that showed the training of her Anbu position. She hesitated slightly. Are you sure, Hokage? There may be a reason that he retaliated. He could have been attached. Minato looked at the Anbu agent with a steeled expression. Fine, see if you could bring him in. If you can't, kill him. He then walked closer to the Anbu and whispered to her. Don't let personal feeling get involved. I know that you watched over him on Hiruzen's behest and have confronted him on a few occasions with and without your mask. The Anbu stiffened from what she heard and nodded slowly. He may wear the skin of my son, but he is not, and today he has proven that. He paused before continuing again. I was fooled once into believing that he was my son. I won't fall for it again, and I trust you won't either. The cat nodded slowly and disappeared from the hospital. Minato looked to the doctor now. Does the man have any family? Not that we know of. We believed that he was an orphan and the only close thing to family was a girlfriend. Should we deliver the message to her or would you like to Hokage? It's fine, I'll tell her. She a chunin, so it's my job. Thank you for informing me. Flashback end. The investigation led almost to nothing. All they could get from it was that Mizuki was walking to meet up at a bar and was attacked by the beast and left there to rot as the beast escaped the village with a man dressed in black. He was then interrupted by a knock on his office door and a voice. Father, may I come in? Enter, was all he said as he looked at his daughter Mito, who was now a beautiful young woman and almost looked like an exact copy of her mother, with the exception of her blue eyes. She was 5'5" and had red hair in a ponytail with her bangs framing her face on each side. She wore long-sleeve fishnets and fishnet gloves with a sleeveless Chinese tang shirt that was red with gold trim. With a pair black Anbu pants and black ninja sandals. Check bio for pic. Father, you wanted to see me? She asked in an indifferent voice. You know you could call me too, San, in private. He said, hoping to get a response from his daughter that wasn't negative. Yes, I know, but why would I call you that when I haven't in almost 6 years? She waited to see how he would respond, but after no response for 30 seconds she continued. What do you want, father? Minato, who sighed and just looked at her. Ever since she old enough to understand what she had in her and in her brother, she had been distant from he and Kushina, claiming that Naruto wasn't a beast and that he was their son. Of course they tried to show her that he was a beast, but she was stubborn in her belief. So different beliefs led to arguments and arguments led to distance. Thank the gods that she didn't hate them. Though she did move out at the age of 15, which was too early in their eyes, but by technicality she was an adult and could make her own decisions. Actually, yes, I need you to escort a diplomat around the village. He is from a country in the west. This got her attention. You mean Suna? She questioned. No, from what we heard, the diplomat is from a country that borders Suna and is out of the elemental nations. He stopped to show a letter that was in a drawer. We received a letter from the country saying that they have gotten out of a long war and are opening their boards to all countries in the west and here in the elemental nations for a games of sorts. They call it an Olympics. They're sending this diplomat to all the countries in the elemental nations in hopes to convince us to come. I've heard that most if not all the villages are going and are even sending competitors. Mito looked at her father confused. Okay, I understand the seeing the village part, but why tell me all this other stuff? That's because I want you be a competitor in one of the events that they're going to offer. It would look good if the leader's child were to compete in it. I will also have others from your age group be participating as well as those that are older. What kind of events are there? If I'm going to compete, I'd at least like to choose the one I do. Minato rubbed the back of his head sheepishly. Well, we don't know what kind of events there are yet, but as soon as we know I'll let you know. Mito could only shake her head. All right, but as so, she was stopped as his secretary entered and explained that the gate guards stopped a group that she believes are the diplomats that he mentioned earlier to her. Minato sighed. We can continue this later, but for now meet with them. See what they're like and if they're friendly. Mito nodded and then proceeded to walk out. Gods have mercy on us that they're peaceful, were the last thoughts before he left to gather the council to meet the diplomats. Diplomats. As Mito walked towards the gates, she saw a strange sight before her. It was a group of 5 people. 2 wearing formal-looking clothes while the other 3 wore servant uniforms. Sir, I'm sorry we can't let you in yet. We have been ordered to wait for an escort for your group. Oh, pretty please. Why can you just let us in? We'll be good boys. Said a teen boy. Alois, shut it already. Almost all the villages were the same. What makes you think this one would be any different? Now just shut up already. Oh, you're so mean to me, Seal. Remember I almost got us into that sand village when I put my charms on that one girl. Oh, and her flinging you into the sand with her fan really meant that she loved you. Both stopped arguing as both had their ears pulled on by what looked to be a maid with tan skin, straight lavender hair and a maid uniform that was indigo. Both of you, would you please show some dignity? We are meeting others from a different county. I was expecting this out of Alois, but you seal. I'll just say that I'm disappointed in the both of you, but I am more upset with you two. She said, looking toward the two other servants. Both being very tall and handsome with fair complexions and wearing black butler suits with one wearing glasses. The one named Seal looked to be 16 and had dark navy blue hair with the same colored eye on the left side, but the right was covered with a black eye patch. He was only a little taller than herself, standing roughly 5 feet 6 with a black long coat, while under he wore a black waistcoat and wore black pants. The other one that was arguing with him, Alois, looked to be also 16, had platinum blonde hair with baby blue eyes and stood about 5 feet 8. He wore something similar to the now named Seal. He had a purple long coat with a dark green waistcoat underneath. He also wore long pants with knee-high heels. The two butlers that had been called out only looked at the woman and gave a slight shrug with barely noticeable smiles. Though the one without glasses spoke first. Hannah, they're older and I can't see why they can't handle themselves. The now named Hannah gave a deadpan stare at the butler who talked. You out of all people are telling me this, and don't you even speak Claudius? You're the same way as Sebastian. I think you two just like to see them get in trouble with me. It was silent for a moment before the one named Sebastian replied in a suave way. I wouldn't lie and say it's not amusing to watch. Ha, I was right, you always did leave when she would come around when me and Alois argued. My lord, I would never do such a thing to you. It is my job to protect you and serve you till the end of time. Sebastian said as he got down on one knee. This also got the one named Claudius to kneel in front of Alois. As is my duty to serve you, my highness, till the end of time, he said in a dull way. This was the scene that Mito had walked into. Kotetsu, Azumo. Are these the ones claiming to be diplomats? Yeah, was Azumo's reply. Well, my father said that I'm to show them around the village. So let them in and I'll take them off your hands. Okay, Mito, but if they cause any trouble, we're pointing the finger at you. It's all right. She then looked at the group that looked to recover from whatever they were doing. All right, let's go. I'll be showing you around the village. At that moment, the one named Alois walked up to her and took her hand, surprising her. What a beautiful lady you are. What is thy name, madam? Mito quickly pulled her hand back and blushed from the embarrassment. Not many of the boys she grew up with had the balls to do what this 16-year-old did, but that's probably because they don't know who she was or who her parents were. I'm Mito Uzumaki, was her calm reply. Uzumaki. I've heard that name before. Oh, are you a member of the Uzumaki clan I've heard so much about? Alois asked. This confused Mito. How did two foreign diplomats from a country that had had no relations with the elemental nations know of the almost extinct clan? Hell, she didn't even know it was a clan until a few years ago when her mother told her about where she grew up. Yeah, but how do you even know of that clan? They've been almost extinct for years now. How would you know of them? Seal was the one to speak this time. You could say that we have an Uzumaki in the West and he can claim to be one, but for personal reasons chose to change his name. Oh, well, that's slightly disappointing to hear, but hey, maybe if my village agrees to go to your Olympics. Yes, Olympics. I could meet him. I don't know if he would want to. He doesn't like the name very much from what he's told us. So he might not agree, said Alois. Oh, that sucks, she said sadly, thinking she could have possibly met another person from her clan, but she quickly pushed those thoughts to the back of her head. Well, let's get this tour started. Council meeting chambers. So are we in agreement that we'll be participating? Almost all of the hands of the Konoha Council, civilian and ninja, raised their hands in agreement with the exception of the elders. They had wanted to send people to watch the games but not compete in them. They wanted to see what this country could do. Minato had been debating with the council about the games and if they were going to participate or not before the diplomats were even summoned. The letter was the real invitation, but the diplomats were the representatives that could be asked all questions. Okay, Anbu, have the diplomats escorted here. Minato, I hope you know what you're doing, stated Danzo. Because we the elders still believe that you shouldn't send competitors, let alone our Jinchuriki. I and Horimo also agree with Danzo. We should wait before we send our most powerful ninja. The other elder said. None of you should worry. They just recently got out of a war, and from what I was able to get from the letter is that it was no more than a little more than a year ago that it ended. If it were any sort of trap or grab for power, we could crush them almost instantly, and that's just us. They'll have the other major villages there to worry about, was Minato's reply. I bet that their military isn't even that stable in that short amount of time. Hell, I'd bet even the Hyuga could beat them, stated the matriarch of the Inuzuka clan Sume with a smile. A tick mark appeared on the Hyuga patriarch Hiyashi. Are you saying what I think you are, Inuzuka? Oh, whatever could you mean, Hiyashi? Was Sume's sarcastic reply. Minato only sighed and shook his head. This was normal with the clans. He never minded a bit of friendly competition in the council, but sometimes it just wasn't appropriate, like now. He was about to stop them, but his words died in his throat as he heard the door open and a calm and almost mocking voice spoke. I would love to see you both try. It is only a friendly competition between our countries. We wouldn't mind allowing a few clan leaders, Jinchuriki or even cages participate. Hell, one of the cages are competing in our Olympics. I couldn't tell you which event for privacy reasons, but they are competing all the same, said a teenager with navy blue hair. And you are? Questioned the Hyuga clan head. This time a teenager with platinum blonde hair answered. Oh, forgive us. We didn't introduce ourselves. The boy with blonde hair turned to another one of the people that entered. Shall I do the honors, or would you like to? Go ahead. I know you want to, and if I don't let you, I know you'll complain later, was the blue-haired teenager's reply. The blonde then bowed in a way they haven't seen before, putting one foot forward and one arm around the back while the other was placed right in front of the boy's stomach. I am Alois Trancy, and this one right next to me is Seal Phantomhive. We are the twin kings of the underworld and the diplomats sent to discuss the games. We will also be hosting the games. The Hyuga paled slightly. Oh, my apologies. I just didn't think you'd be so young. Yes, we get that a lot, it's alright. No harm done, said the now named Alois in an almost too cheery way. If I may ask, Mr. Trancy, who are the ones standing behind you? Asked a curious Akamichi. Oh, they are our servants. Alois then looked at the three. You may introduce yourselves, he stated. The first to introduce himself was a man named Sebastian, the second was Claudius, and the last was Hannah. All the occupants were awed by the beauty of the three servants. Even the ever-stoic Hiyashi's cheeks flushed a bit at the sight of Hannah. Now I going to skip the introduction of the games. Every other village just wanted to know the events that will be there. So here is a list of the events that will be there. I will give you a few moments to look over it and then answer some questions, said Seal. It was quiet as Minato looked at the letter, but the silence was interrupted by Minato himself. Am I reading these last two right? They're completely different from the others. Minato questioned. The council members only looked on in confusion. What could it be that was so bad? At that, Seal sighed. Sigh. The last one actually is correct, but the one before that, yes, we know it's strange, and trust me, that one wasn't by choice. Even our emperor was a bit upset because he has to participate. Seal answered him. Who even came up with this idea, and what do you mean he has to participate? Asked Minato. It was drawn at random. We couldn't come up with the final ones, so we had our council draw from a collection of ideas. This idea was put in by a woman named Viscounta Druid too. She said something about how the beauty of humans should be something to never hide. Whatever that means, but the reason the emperor is in this one is because if he didn't compete, Viscounta would have asked his wives to compete in a reverse event, and if that were to happen, let's just say that it wouldn't be pretty. The emperor's wives are friendly with each other. Hell, you'd think they're sisters, but when an opportunity to one-up the other arises, let's just say they don't hesitate often. Unless he himself stops them, but I don't think that they'll stop this time even if asked. I see, so only males are allowed to compete in it? Asked Minato. Yep. Alois answered. If I may ask, is there actually anybody from the nations competing in this specific event? Actually, there are a few from what we were able to get before leaving the other villages. Answered Seal. Minato sighed before speaking. Okay. Well, you're more than welcome to stay in the village until we can GI. Minato was stopped when Seal spoke. I'm afraid that we won't be staying. Our time here has been over the time permitted. The only reason we're still here is because our emperor asked us to visit every major and a few small villages before returning, and because of that we will be leaving when this meeting is over. Seal cut in. We ask that you send your acceptance to Suna, and also how many will be competing. Alois continued. Danzo spoke up with narrowed eyes. Why Suna? We ask Suna because they have messenger birds that know their way to our capital. They are quite friendly and we have been trading with them since the end of our war. Answered Seal with a smile that almost seemed mocking. Now with that we would like to take our leave. Alright, then I'll have my daughter escort you out of the village. And with a nod from Alois and Seal them left. Once they left and the doors closed, Danzo spoke. I don't like that they're friendly with Suna before us. Also with the fact that they choose to visit us last and not stay here. I would keep an eye out for them when we go to compete since you all decided. I can understand being friendly with other countries before us, but I don't understand the other reasons, you old bat. Was Soom's response. It can mean that they didn't want to come here. Meaning that they don't see us in a good light. Why? I don't know, but for once I might agree with Danzo that we should be wary of them. Agreed Shibi of the Aburame clan. I as well, but for a different reason. Hiashi then looked at Minato. None of them had a single ounce of chakra in their bodies. Seal and Alois. Well, I hope that you had a decent time here, even though you didn't spend much time here. Said Mito. It was alright, but if our counties continue this friendship we must eat together at that ramen shop you took us to. Was Alois' reply. At that Mito smiled, but then her face became sad and looked like she was in deep thought as they arrived at the gates. Could I ask the both of you something? Asked Mito in a sad tone, all the previous joy leaving her face. They stopped at the gates when they saw her and heard her depressed voice. Seal and Alois shared a look before Seal answering. Yes, what is it? Have you heard or met anyone by the name of? Mito stopped, hesitating as if the next question would cause her pain. Have you heard the name, Naruto Namikaze, anywhere in the West? Seal answered after taking time to think, judging by the way his body stood. I'm sorry, we haven't. But if we do, I'll be sure to tell you at the games. He answered her. Oh, okay then. It was nice meeting you. She said, still showing her sadness in the tone of her voice, and with that they left the village hidden in the leaves. So do you think that Naruto will be happy that his twin still loves him and misses him? Asked Alois as they got farther from the village. I can't say with certainty, but I think he will. Though there's one I do suggest we watch out for. At least out of the council. Seal answered. Oh, so you think so too, don't you? The man that was all bandaged up. Yes, him. He seems off, and I know Sebastian felt it. Same with Hannah and Claudius. Yes, my lord. I felt something strange about him, but it was more his soul that was off. Answered Sebastian. Yes, his soul was as black as the night. Almost as bad as the one that set the world back to the Stone Age so many years ago. Continued Claudius in his dull tone. Agreed, Hannah answered. Do you think the Naruto would let us have his soul if we asked nicely? Asked Alois. Maybe. That is unless the man does something to him first, but even then he just may give it you too. If he's in a good mood. Seal said, not showing any sign that he cared. Oh, I hope he does. I love the souls that squirms before I eat. I still don't know how your highness developed the appetite for the foul ones. Claudius said out loud. Oh, you can thank Hannah. She gave me my first meal like that. Alois said in a cheerful voice. West. Emperor's Council Room, night time. As Seal and Alois made their way back, we find our favorite emperor sitting in a chair at a table in the shape of a circle with 5 other chairs, but with 4 of the 5 being filled. These people were his kings and queens in his council. Each in their own right a king or queen among men and women, and because of that, each person at the table had every right to sit there. You guys can look these people up for what they look like. None are hide to find except one, which is the one not here but will show up later in story. Names of series will be at bottom. I don't see anything wrong with it except for that event Visconti chose, said a gruff voice that came from a man wearing a white tunic. Oh, lighten up, Leonidas, it's not like you're competing in it. The only people that are competing in this room is our dear emperor and our one-eyed king. Of course it's not by choice, but still, said a voice. Cora, you're just saying that because there's no female version of this event. Besides, Lelouch is competing too, Kaneki said in a dull tone. At that, every person in the room turned their head to the emperor's hand. A title bestowed on those that assist the emperor with most things and is the most trusted advisor. The man standing next to the emperor sighed. Yes, I will be competing in this, but the only reason is because the witch forced me. Oh, CC isn't a witch. She's the nicest person I know, and whenever I see her we always go out to eat that new food. Oh, what is it called again, Lelouch? Cora asked. You mean pizza, he said with a sigh. Yeah, that's the one. It is so good. Didn't you say it was super popular like over 100 years ago or something like that? While it wasn't 100 years ago, it was more like 1,500 years ago was it popular. Huh, I always forget like you're a million years old, Cora said with a thoughtful face before it turned it a look of curiosity. You and CC gotta tell me your secret. Is it some mysterious elixir, or do you bath as some type of spirit water? Naruto sighed with a smile on his face. This is how his meeting always ended, with his council of kings and queens, as Cora called them. It was sometimes hard to believe that these were the men and women he fought side by side with. What with all their silliness shown off the battlefield. His smile only widened as he watched Cora, queen of the elemental states, which were a group of territories ruled by her under his name, and one of the strongest women besides his wives, argue with his lanky and weak advisor about which food was the best. He also saw his other 3 kings laughing or chuckling at the scene before them, but what he saw in the eyes of each person was what he loved. He saw in every eye a sense of calm, peace and happiness. Emotions that by all logic and reason shouldn't be there, considering everyone's past. Each enduring a horror that none should go through, all being similar in ways they would have never guessed. Kaneki the one-eyed king was the most similar to him. Being forced with a burden that they did not ask for. He was born from wedlock between a ghoul woman and human man. Lost his mother after she was killed by his father right in front of him. Hunted for being a ghoul and disliked by the ghoul community. He went to find his uncle and met his cousin Ito. There he was raised and later met Naruto. When he still lived with Kuritsugu Emiya. Everything was fine until he was taken by a rival ghoul gang and was tortured at the age of 17. He later escaped and then hunted the leader of the ghoul gang that had kidnapped and tortured him, the White Suits, for 2 years. He then killed and took over the origination. After that he returned home to find out that his uncle died and that his cousin took over their organization named Aogiri and just started fighting alongside Naruto. Korra, or the Avatar, was born to a poor family in a realm that was divided into states, also known as elemental states. Each state held a race of humans that could control and bend the elements to their will, but like all of them in the room, she was different. She had the ability to bend all the elements and some sub-elements, and because of that, all the states went after her to use her as a weapon in the hopes that their state would rule the others. Though that never happened. Her parents were later killed because she didn't cooperate, and because of that she went on a rampage at the age of 18. She then started a rebellion that was made up of all types of bender and fought against the states. She led them for 4 years and ended up conquering 4 of the 5 states. She ended up in a standstill, not gaining or losing any ground until she was offered help by Naruto. Ichigo is from a clan known as the Shin'i, the one that Naruto's wife, Retsu Unohana, was from. It was a clan that was not from this dimension but worshipped the same death god. He was born with an excessive amount of Reiatsu or spirit energy, which was not chakra. Though he was also born with another abnormality. For some reason he had the ability to use the power of hollows, which are an extinct race of demons. This abnormality made him the center of attention for many years that ranged from good to bad. He was seen as a freak and abomination. Until he was later used as a weapon in a war long forgotten by the current age of men. The 300-year Blood War. He fought on the front lines as a living weapon against a race known as the Quincy. Near the end of the war their enemies made a big move that caused the death of their highest generals. Only leaving his wife Retsu and another general named Byakuya alive. The brother to Ichigo's future wife Rukia. After the Quincy's attack, Ichigo, fed up and on the brink of losing the war and losing his sanity, led an attack on the Quincy's where he would defeat the Quincy's and be crowned the sole king. He then moved his clan and the people of the other dimension to this world, or world of the living, as he called it, about 45 years ago and built the city and realm that he now rules under Naruto named Saraiti. He would later enter the war and follow Naruto, believing that he could end the constant war in the West. Though it also helped Naruto that Unohana took an interest in him before he started his conquest. Which meant a lot considering the last person she was interested in was a man named Kenpachi Zaraki who was supposedly going to surpass her but ended up dying in the Blood War. The last of them among them was Leonidas, the king of Sparta. Leo, as some called him, grew up in a city that was bred for war. Were at birth they decided whether or not you lived depending on how healthy they were. If they weren't healthy they would throw the newborn of a cliff that was near the city, but if they were torn away from their family at the age of 7 to begin their grueling training. They would have the children fend for themselves and encourage Sealing to feed themselves. They would train them until they could not stand. Though there was a difference in how Leo was treated, for he was the son of their current king and because of that he was expected more from. So much more that his father actually tied him up and took him to a nearby mountain range to leave him and make his way back home. On the way back he encountered wolves and other predators. While having to deal with the cold of the mountains, but there was one predator that hunted him relentlessly. The predator was a black dire wolf that had supposedly been causing trouble for nearby villages. Leo tried to track the beast but had no success. Until he was close to the base of the mountain and near the edge of the forest that surrounded it. There the beast appeared before him and challenged him. Leo had won and then returned home wearing its hide as a cloak and its skull as a mask and trophy. When he arrived home, he walked into the palace and challenged his father for the throne and almost without effort he slew him and took his seat on the throne at the age of 15. 15 years later though Naruto would come along and would face him in single combat, beat him and earn the respect of Leo. Thus why Leo joined Naruto in his mission to conquer the West. These were the stories of the men and women that sat with him. Men and women that bled and cried with him. He would trust them with his life if he had to and they would too, with anyone else in the room. These were the people that changed his life and helped him change the world around him. Oh, would you look at the time? It's already past midnight, Ichigo pointed out. Really? Asked Leo. Yes, answered Kaneki. Then I must be off to bed. I must wake early to get back to Sparta. I also have to leave early, Ichigo said. He then stood and watched everyone else do the same. Alright then, this concludes the end of the final meeting before the games. The games will be in 1 month, Lelouch said and then looked to Naruto. Naruto opened a golden ripple and stuck his hand in only to pull out a golden pitcher of wine and then 6 cups. He then poured wine into each and gave each person a cup. He raised the cup and in a loud voice said, "To you, my kings and queen, I drink, and to the West. May we prosper as people and as a country. To the Emperor, and the West," was the response he received before they all downed the wine and slapped their cups down onto the table.